According to the latest data from the Law School Admission Council, June LSAT test taker numbers are up 7.4% over last year, about 26,000 people in total. And a lot of people are running those numbers backwards. They're saying the surge is back, next cycle is going to be a bloodbath, apply everywhere, take the first offer you get, lock it in before it gets even worse, but it's wrong. If you read the full data, the number actually points the other way. June 2026 specifically was always going to have high test taker numbers due to the fact that it was the last remote LSAT before it goes back to in-person starting in August. Now, if you look at the first time test taker numbers, those were up only 3.9%. And that's the number that really tells you whether there is a new wave of applicants forming, because everyone who ends up applying to law school starts off as a first timer. And so you compare those numbers side by side, total test taker numbers up 7.4%, but brand new taker numbers up only 3.9%, almost half. The gap, of course, is repeaters. People who took the test already got counted, giving it another shot. That means close to 2/3 of the increase is retakes, not new people. Now, of course, it's true that some of those repeaters are gearing up to apply next cycle, so I'm not going to pretend that they're nothing. But the cleanest read on what new demand is like is actually the first-time test takers, and those grew only at about half the speed of the headline everyone's screaming about. Now, as I mentioned, June was the last at-home LSAT. Starting in August, LSAC is requiring almost everybody to take the LSAT in person at a Prometric testing center. They announced that back in February, and the reason is security. Overseas test-taking services were exploiting the at-home setup to cheat on the LSAT, and so LSAC pulled the plug on remote for the vast majority of test takers. The only exceptions left are approved medical accommodations, or if you live more than 180 miles from a testing center. And so June takers were always going to be higher because people who wanted to take it remotely, that was their last chance. It was pulling demand forward into June. People who would have taken it in August rushed for June because they had that last chance. And so I think August is going to be flat for that reason, roughly even with last year, maybe even a little bit under, because people who would have normally taken the LSAT in August took it in June to get ahead of the change. And before you tell me August will look small just because in-person seats are limited, LSAC has actually said they are adding in-person testing centers, and their goal is to have more in-person slots than the number of people who tested in each month last year. And so if August comes in flat against a bigger pile of seats, that's not a shortage, it's demand showing you where it really is. Now, here's what should change how you read every law school number for the next 12 months. Last October, LSAC published its early applicant numbers for this cycle we're now just finishing. Back then, applicants were up 33%, but typically, at that point in the cycle, they've only got about 15% of the applicants they're going to see by the end. And so you can't base your predictions based on that number. Early numbers always run hot because more schools are pushing early decision and rolling admissions, and so applications bunch up in the fall. If you look at this past June, applicants for the cycle only ended up about 9%, not 33%. So it dropped 2/3 on the way down as the cycle went on, but the headlines, of course, stayed frozen at the peak, overstating the numbers. The cycle before this one finished up 18%. This one's landing around 9%, and so the growth is cutting roughly in half from one cycle to the next, and test numbers are sliding the same way. Last September, we had about 23,000 test takers, up 24% over the year before. This June, only 7.4%. You've got to look at the overall trend. Now, last fall, across both the August and September LSATs, first-timers were up about 13%. This June, only 3.9%, and so things might be cooling down, not peaking. If we looked at the pandemic-era surge a few years back, it was the same thing. Applications spiked, and then a chunk of that demand drained right back out. I've seen this over and over, and there's a reason these things crest. I mean, think about what built the boom in the first place. LSAC's own surveys point to the moment we're in right now. People fired up about politics who want to fight it out in the courtroom. People worried about the economy and AI coming for their jobs. They're reaching for a degree that feels safe, And those pressures are real, but they are a one-time step up in interest. It's not just going to rev endlessly. People went to law school and they decided for that, but it's not going to keep peaking and going higher and higher and higher over time. And so where I've landed on this is that I think next cycle is going to be flat. It's not going to crash, but it's not going to keep rising. Now, if you want to be in the best possible position going forward, no matter what happens in this cycle, whether numbers peak, whether they plummet, whether they level out and stay flat, the best move for you right now, of course, remains the same. You want to shoot for the highest LSAT score possible. When you have a higher LSAT score, you can get into better law schools, you can get more scholarship money. It'll give you more options no matter what you end up deciding to do. And of course, you can look at demand, you can look at what the competition is going to be, but none of that actually changes where you should focus your efforts, which are on your own journey, getting the best possible score, raising your score up. If you want my help, I'm happy to support you in your journey. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free LSAT tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link's below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG.